Okay, I think most folks have come in now, so we can go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. So to kick things off, if you're here, you should be a member of Cohort 1, which is OFN members that have a fiscal year end of 3/31, 6/30, or 9/30. If this is not the case, please shoot us an email at ams@ofn.org and we'll get you assigned to the correct cohort. But if you are in Cohort 1, just right off the bat, the due date for your AMS is July 11th, so please keep that in mind. Next slide. So quick agenda for today. We'll start by introducing the AMS team here at OFN. Then we'll go over key information about the survey, as well as changes from last year. We'll also cover tips for navigating your survey in Qualtrics, which is the online software that we use to collect responses. And then we'll leave some time for Q&A. Next slide. One more, please. My name is Alex Carther. I'm a senior associate on the research team at OFN. I'll be co-managing the AMS this year. My colleagues Adrian Smith and Stella Tompkins are also on the call today. I'll let them briefly introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Adrian Smith. I'm the Senior Vice President of Research at OFN, and I look forward to hearing your questions about the AMS this afternoon and welcome you to the webinar.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stella Tompkins, the Data Collection and Analysis Associate here on the team. Thank you all for joining and excited to be along this process with you all.
And the final member of our team, Brent Howell, isn't able to join today, but he's our VP of Field Building Research and has been the lead for the AMS in past years. So if you've done the AMS before, you've probably worked with him. Next slide, please. One more. So before we get into the meat of the survey, here's a quick timeline for Cohort 1. So we launched last week on May 29th, which is when you should have received your initial email with your survey link for your organization. You have approximately 6 weeks to complete your survey, making it due on July 11th, as I mentioned. If you complete your survey before that date, you'll receive a $200 discount for the OFN conference, for registration to the OFN conference as a thank you. We'll then review your responses through early fall. You might receive follow-up questions from our team, which we'll try to get out within 2 weeks of receiving your response. Finally, we'll use the data we collect in our evergreen reports, which should come out in the late fall. Next slide. So what is the purpose of the AMS? We collect these data for a number of reasons. Firstly, the information that CDFIs have is powerful. The data we collect is aggregated and used by our policy team to advocate for CDFIs nationally. We also use the data to produce evergreen publications, and by evergreen, we just mean ones that we release regularly, usually annually, including the side-by-side chart book and peer comparison reports for our members. The side-by-side report gives a broad overview of the industry, while peer reports are customized for each member. We'll take a deeper dive into those publications in a moment. These data are also used in developing new publications and building out OFN's broader research agenda. The CDFI industry generally is under-researched, and the AMS provides a robust data set which can be used to further knowledge development and learning within the industry. Next slide. So our first publication that we do with the AMS data is the side-by-side, which is an industry resource that's used by many different stakeholders. We use the data collected in the AMS and aggregate it to a number of different levels to give a broad overview of the industry in the past year. This publication is used by funders and investors to evaluate CDFI investments, by members to understand performance across different sectors and to make decisions about their own financing, and by policymakers to better understand the industry and make informed decisions regarding programs and resources for CDFIs. These are just a few examples of how this publication is used. Next slide. The second major publication that we use the AMS data for is our peer comparisons. These are not part of a public report, but instead are customized reports that compare each member CDFI to others with similar performance metrics. Your CDFI will be put into a group of peers based on a number of factors, such as primary lending sector and total asset size, and you'll receive a report comparing your numbers to the average numbers for the rest of your group. These reports can be used to inform strategic planning, to make operational decisions, and to inform stakeholders about your CDFI's performance compared to its peers and the industry. Next slide. Besides our publication, the other benefit of completing the AMS is a $200 discount off one registration for the 2025 OFN conference, which will be available to folks that submit their surveys before the due date of July 11th. Next slide. One more, please. So now we'll go over changes to the AMS. If you did the AMS last year, you may recall that we cut a significant portion of the survey to make it shorter and easier to complete. This year, the survey remains largely the same, but we've added a few things back in. So first, you might notice upon opening your survey that we now have an embedded data validation page. This is to ensure that the correct data are being pre-filled for your organization, both from ERIS as well as your FY23 response, if that's applicable. This page should show a unique identifier in both boxes. You do not need to know or record this ID. It should just automatically pre-fill for you. We'd recommend copying and pasting the link from your launch email directly into your browser window rather than clicking on it within the email, as sometimes safe links protection within Outlook or Gmail can strip the unique identifier from the survey. If the two IDs in these boxes are not the same, please contact us before proceeding with the survey. Next slide. The next change to this year's survey is the inclusion of TLR uploads, or transaction level reports. For members which report either full-length or abbreviated TLR data to the CDFI fund, we are requesting both the TLR data file and the address file which you submitted to the fund. You don't need to change or modify these files in any way. We've linked a video within the survey which shows how you can access those files from the CDFI fund after you've submitted them. Next slide. The next change is the addition of breakouts to the Statement of Activities Unrestricted Contributed Revenue section. Again, if you've done the AMS in the past, you may recognize this as something we used to collect. We now break out unrestricted income into unrestricted grants and contributions, in-kind donations, and net assets released from restrictions. Operating expenses breakouts will now also include provision for loan loss reserve. Next slide. And the final change is in portfolio performance. We've also added back in breakout categories for debt restructures. So that'll include troubled debt restructures, other modifications and restructures, total non-accruals, and non-accruals in greater than 90 days past due. Next slide. So next, we'll discuss some quick tips for navigating your AMS response in Qualtrics. Next slide. So a few things to note. Qualtrics does have a few requirements for your responses that you should be aware of. First, responses should only include integer characters, so no commas, decimal points, extra spaces, or other symbols unless specified in the question. We also recommend that only one person from your CDFI works on the survey at any given time to avoid data being overwritten. Please also do not use incognito or private browsing windows to complete this survey, as it may cause an issue with the autosave function. Next slide. Additionally, you should only use the previous and next buttons at the bottom of the page to navigate between sections. Do not use the table of contents on the left-hand side to navigate, as doing so may cause display issues. The table of contents also may not let you navigate away from an incomplete or unfulfilled page. Using the buttons at the bottom of the page should resolve this issue so you don't get stuck. A PDF record of your responses is also available on the final page of the survey before you submit. Please note that once you submit your response, you won't be able to make any changes. If you need to do so, please email us at ams@ofn.org, and we can reopen your survey for you. But the original link that we sent you won't work anymore. Next slide. So that's all we had presentation-wise. Again, as a reminder, the due date for your cohort is July 11th, 2025. So now we have time for questions. Please feel free to put any that you have in the Q&A box or in the chat, and we'll respond to you as best we can.
Thanks everybody for listening, and thanks Alex for the presentation. So we do have one question so far. What the question is, what if we haven't submitted our TLR yet? We are still waiting on the CDFI fund to release the updated format that incorporates ERP related data fields. So if you haven't submitted, we are asking for like the format of the TLR that you submit to the CDFI fund, and there's guidance on it within the AMS that tells you how to download from the CDFI fund. So if you haven't submitted yet, I would say just put that in the survey response. So there is like an option that like, no, I'm not uploading my TLR, and it asks you to give the reason why. So you would give that reason why my CDFI hasn't submitted to the CDFI fund yet. If you are submitting, there's a good chance that this AMS is going to be open through, as this says, July 11th. So if you are submitting within the next month and a week, like we'd recommend just holding off and submitting in July so that you can submitting the AMS in July so that you can include your TLR then. Thanks for your question, Jake. And the TLR, like we are interested in members' feedback on this TLR upload process, like how easy it is and your experience with it. And if you have any like questions about TLR, we really encourage you to reach out to us about just the experience of submitting TLR to us. So Rhonda's asking in the box, is the survey shorter this year, fewer questions, or a condensed format? And how will it be used for advocacy at the state and the federal level?
Yeah, sure. I apologize for the background noise. My neighbors have decided that now is an excellent time to cut their grass. So let me know if you can hear me. But the survey is pretty much the same length this year as last year. As I mentioned, we added a couple breakouts within the sections, but there isn't any significant additions. So it'll be just a little bit longer, which we know that it is already a very long survey, which is why we've tried to keep it as short as possible. But we found that some of the departments within OFN were requesting those breakouts that we had removed earlier. So we went ahead and added them back in.
Yeah.
And Adrian, do you want to talk about advocacy?
Sure, perfect. So yeah, and just to reiterate Alex's point, we did condense the survey significantly last year. So overall, we still think it's like as streamlined as hopefully as possible. So for advocacy, basically, our policy team led by Defina Williams, they use data both from the CDFI fund and from OFN to really paint a picture of what CDFIs are, what the industry is, and what its accomplishments are. So OFN's data about like the way that CDFIs, the outcomes they achieve, the number of affordable housing unit, the jobs created and retained, those are key talking points that our policy team like literally arms themselves with and takes into the offices of congressional representatives, of staff from federal agencies. So they just really use the data to paint a portrait of what OFM's members are and what they accomplish and what they do on the ground in communities. Thanks for that question. It's a really important one. So Michael is asking, if our year end is 5/31/25, do we submit information for the prior year end, 5/31/24, as the audit and TLR won't be done but until early July for the latest year?
Yeah, so it should be for fiscal year 24. So I do believe that would be the prior year end.
Yes.
And as we discussed, if your TLR isn't, well, I guess that was for the latest year end. It's not for the year that has just ended for
Yeah.
you. It would be the year before.
Yeah, that's why we had this like period. We didn't launch until May because we're really looking at, we want to make sure that all members have their audits done and are able to have the previous year's audit, the fiscal year 2024 audit ready and usable for this AMS that we're fielding now. Thank you, Michael.
And I see Kathy asks, can you print a copy of the survey with the values populated from prior years? So you should be able to print that once you've completed it. I don't believe that there's a print function prior to filling in all of the fields to get to the end of the survey.
Yeah.
Is that right, Adrian?
Yeah, so what you can print at the beginning of the survey, and even in the email, the launch email, you can print a blank Word version of the survey and a blank PDF version. And then once you enter the survey, you can see your fiscal year 2023 values. But you can't print like that unless you want to go screen by screen. You can't print the full PDF of all the values until you get to the end of the survey. But we do feel like having that blank template plus the data filled in from last year throughout the survey are good tools to help you fill in your values for this year. Thank you, Kathy. Other questions that folks have? Well, we just make sure that folks have time to answer, type their questions into the Q&A or to the webinar chat. I guess I'll ask my co-panelists, what's your favorite data point on the AMS?
That is a good question. There are definitely a lot of options. I think probably I think the end beneficiary data points are really interesting. It's kind of fun to compare how those numbers work out for different sectors and different members across the board.
Mhm.
I like the urban major, metropolitan area, minor metropolitan area, just to see the kind of vast array of areas that the members serve. It's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I like the financing breakout. I know that's so basic, but like it's just really interesting to understand the trends and patterns and what our member like this the diversity of sectors and types of lending that our members do. Similarly, I think the borrowed funds breakout is kind of cool because like we get like members get funding and investment from such a diverse set of investors is really interesting and how that's changed over time. I will put in a plug. We are in the next weeks or month that hopefully putting out pieces on 5-year trends in by sector. So we have one piece for business, small business and micro enterprise, a second piece on community facilities and commercial real estate, and a third piece on housing that will look at like the 5-year trends. And this 5-year period is really interesting because it includes both the pandemic, like lead up to the pandemic itself, and then like the recovery, a bit of recovery from the pandemic. So it's an interesting 5-year period to look at. And you can check out all of our publications, the research publications on OFN's website. Any other questions? We'll hold tight for one more minute. And I know this is a webinar that's more like about just making ourselves available and being a resource to members as they complete the annual member survey. So But this webinar is not the only opportunity to reach us and to ask questions. You're always welcome, just to reiterate the point, to email us at ams@ofn.org. Kathy is asking, can we save our work while we skip around the survey?
Yes, so the survey does autosave as you're inputting things, but you do have to navigate using the previous and next buttons at the bottom of the screen. Um, and then when you hit that, it'll say, do you want to navigate away and save your work? You can click yes, and then it'll let you navigate to different pages. But it won't let you jump around from the table of contents if the page is not complete, which can be kind of frustrating. But if you use the previous and next buttons, it should be fine.
And one key reason you want to use the previous and next buttons and kind of go in order through it is because, like, the balance sheet data fill in to later parts. Like, you enter loans outstanding on the SP, and then that loans outstanding will populate in your financing breakout. So there's certain sections that build on top of each other. That's why one of the reasons you want to use previous and next. Thank you, Kathy. So we'll give it one more minute. And I will say OFN is, like, we've made changes to the survey over the last couple of years. We continually seek to improve the member experience with the survey. We know that Qualtrics isn't the most user-friendly, and it's not a true survey in that we're not asking you attitudes or opinions. So we are hoping to make more significant changes to the survey over time to enhance member benefits and to improve user experience with the member data reporting. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, I'll hand it over to Alex to wrap us up.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Hopefully this was helpful for you. If you think of any questions afterwards, you can email us at ams@ofn.org. We'll be happy to help you figure anything out. There should be a recording available of this webinar, which will be emailed out to everyone probably sometime in the next 2 weeks. So if you need to come back for reference, that'll be available. And yeah, thanks for joining us today. Hopefully your AMS experience is off to a good start.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.